Okay, can I put this in my... Is this any better? Yeah. Can you hear me? The quality will not improve, but the volume at least. Right. So I got involved in this in 1995, where we organized the first structure. We set up a bunch of working groups, and then we had a series of 4 workshops leading up to Snowmass of '96. So this was sort of the original series of meetings. After that time, we decided that we should go not only international but interregional. So we then spent some time forming a worldwide study. We first met in Vancouver in July of 1998. So this was the birth of what we now call the worldwide study. We had an organizing committee with 15 people, chaired by the 3 of us from the 3 regions. And this thing has met regularly, roughly twice a year since then. The goals of the international study, we emphasized, were valid regardless of the eventual geographic location of the machine, and obviously independent of the technology of the machine. So those were not our concerns. The site and the technology were specifically not our concern. The 3 reasons we did this is to obviously study the physics and the detector parameters. We felt very importantly to start building an international user community, and obviously to start thinking about detectors with the goal of having some detector designs and rough costing by the time of the design reports. So that was the reason. Of course, we didn't really exist until we have a web page, which we did. And this does exist. It's even reasonably brought up to date once every so often. So that this is, it's a pain in the neck to keep it up to date. But we try. So this is, from this page you can go to all the national efforts and so on.
The date on the bottom is 98.
Well, as I said, we keep it up to date occasionally. The legitimacy of this international group comes from ICFA. Although we formed it first and then we made a presentation to ICFA in August of '99, and then their response to that, this was the ICFA meeting of August '99, they made a strong recommendation for the linear collider. They emphasized the importance of international collaboration, and they endorsed the importance of the worldwide study. So this is sort of, our legitimacy comes from ICFA. We then set up a bunch of working groups. I think this is quite a lot. We set up 15 working groups. And each working group had 3 what we called contact persons, 1 from each region. And you can tell which region, I guess. So that this is then a bunch of working groups that have, with some changes, some people have resigned, other new people have come. But these working groups, some more, some less, have been working over the last 3 years. Okay? And we also then, well, the first 3 we had nothing to do with. That was before our time. These are the international workshops. But we organized the Barcelona meeting and the Fermilab meeting in October 2000. So this is roughly the activity of the international group. Now, within the international group, there were studies in North America, in Europe, and in Asia. So this is the American activities. And the American activities were coordinated by Paul Granis and myself. We had working groups which fairly closely matched the international working groups. And we had a whole bunch of people. Again, there's some changes in this, but it's been fairly stable. This group has been working then in the last 3 years. Now, some of the activities of this study group have been preparing, for example, the so-called white paper, sort of justification for the case for the linear collider. We prepared what we call the Orange Book, which had a funny colored cover. We made some generic detector designs. I think there were 3 of them. And we were actually brave enough to put down some rough cost estimates for these. So these are the 3 detectors that the North American group designed. So now given the European one and the Japanese one, there's something like 5 detector designs floating around. Okay? And we did establish an R&D program. This is for detector simulation and physics studies. The first year of this program ran at something like, well, $340,000. The second year went up to close to $500,000. It was 300 plus 150 plus another 50 from NSF. So year 2 we're running at around $500,000. Year 3 of this program we're in now, July 2001 to July 2002. So we're in the 3rd year of this, again roughly $500,000. And Charlie Prescott was kind enough to chair a committee that selected. So we called for proposals. The proposals were selected by Prescott and his group, and this is sort of the 3rd year of this program. We have also organized a series of regional meetings in Boulder, Keystone, Berkeley, Johns Hopkins. Of course, then there was Snowmass this summer. We are now in Chicago, as you can tell by my cold. And we are now just about decided on the next meeting that will be in Santa Cruz in, I said mid to late June. It looks now more like late June. The date, we're still trying to pick a date. So that the next meeting will be in Santa Cruz, something like late June. Okay, so this is sort of where we are. Of course, the question is, where do we go from here? So let me again talk a little bit about the worldwide and then the national. The worldwide study, we had a meeting of the steering committee in Rome, July. It was a wonderful place to be. And we agreed that there is a need for this group to continue more or less as it is for a few more years. We didn't try to get very specific for what a few more is. We further agreed on 3 activities. The first one you heard about from Rolf just 2 talks ago. So this is already the present more than the future. We had a meeting at Krakow almost. That was scheduled for September 14, so that didn't quite happen. So maybe I won't say any more about this. Rolf gave you a report on that. We all felt that that was very important to have an international R&D coordination. We decided to write some kind of a world book that's a sequel to the 3 regional documents. The details of this world book we're still discussing, so let me not dwell on that too much. But hopefully a first draft of at least some part of it will be discussed at the Korean meeting. And the third thing that's underway is that we're organizing the next International Linear Collider Workshop in Korea. We thought that going to South Korea in August would make up for January in Chicago. So that's the strategy here. So that meeting is pretty far underway, and there is now a web page so that this thing is now pretty well on its way to being organized. Okay, now the question is, what do we do with the regional activity in the US? And I think the suggestion is that it's time to re-examine and reorganize the American regional effort. Okay? The present leadership and interim organizers should declare their job done, and we should enter this, we're suggesting this transition period between now and the June meeting. So the first discussion of this new organization has taken place or is taking place at this meeting, and we hope to complete this by the June meeting. Now, just a little bit of history. For those of you who were at the Boulder meeting, you remember the idea, the spirit of the Boulder meeting was that we set up the working groups and their leadership, and we even gave them this contorted name of interim organizers, misspelled interim organizers. And the intention of that word was to emphasize that this first group should get the ball rolling. But as a broader segment, we were hoping at that time that a broader segment of the community would get involved, that when that happened, then we should rotate so that we allow room for the new faces to take ownership of this organization. And we believe that this time has now come, that given the snowmass, given the HEPAP process, that this is now a new birth. I see a lot of new faces here. So we should now start with a clean slate and form some kind of an organization. Now, here are some possibilities of, or at least some of the questions. For example, what would be the structure or the purpose? So far, we have been a study of physics and detectors. We could form a users organization. We could call this a collaboration. Now, I have pretty strong opinions that it's premature for either of these, but people may disagree. So that's the first question. What kind of a thing do you want to do? You need to choose some overall coordinators, and my guess is that those will be selected or endorsed by the lab directors, or most likely this new steering committee. Okay? I think we should relook at the working groups. We should put some of them out of their misery that have been not very active at all. Maybe some new ones should be invented. The leadership could be new. Most likely it'll be old because there's only so many people who will do some work. So there'll be some mixture there. I think it's clear that we should seek funding for an increased scope of detector R&D program, and that we should try to converge on this process by the June meeting. So the discussions of this meeting sort of emboldened me to put down some kind of a little picture of what this might look like. It's a little bit like dark matter. We have no idea what it is, but we talk about it. We have this linear collider steering committee that's been recommended by the bearish bagger folks. And I think there's no doubt that something like that will happen, and that that group will be the responsible body, and that the natural place for us, I've drawn this box a little bit bigger than the others, because I think it's more important, but just to illustrate it, so that we naturally fit in as a subgroup of this steering committee, that there'll be some coordinators. I would guess 2, just because we have had 2, so that's an easy guess, but maybe it should be 1, maybe it should be 3, chosen by the steering committee. I would suggest that we have some kind of an executive committee. If it's a bigger group with more involvement, maybe it should have a little bit of an executive committee. Clearly, you'll need working groups on physics, detectors, and then following some of the suggestions from the Cornell people and Dave Burke, that there should be experimentalist involvement in the accelerator. There might be some working groups to facilitate that. So you might have some of that. And then I do think there should be some kind of an R&D committee, a successor to the Prescott committee. Maybe Professor Prescott's arm is twistable, maybe not. So that we need something like that. So in fact, let me end up with what I think is the most important thing. I mean, organizations, form of structure is kind of playing games. I think the important thing is that we do start a serious detector R&D program. I mean, in the last 3 years, we had such a program. It concentrated on physics studies. It mostly supported postdocs. It was running at about $500K a year. So I think that clearly we should continue some physics simulations, but I think it's time to start some hardware R&D. I mean, I don't think we could agree more with Rolf Heyer that the time has come. We should start this. The only problem with that is money, which is always comes down to that. We started talking to the lab directors and DOE to substantially increase the funding for that program. They all agree that this is a great idea, but they have no money. So that'll be the big issue. So to me, this is sort of the most important thing in the near future, to get a more substantial R&D program underway. So let me stop here.
Still time for a couple of questions. Comments? Everybody agree? Andreas?
Where's Mike Ronan when we need him?
Well, this is just a comment. I'd like to thank Charlie and Paul for all that they did to lead the American study the last several years, and I think they both deserve a round of applause.
Right?
Charlie, I've been trying to get some money for R&D at Berkeley to try to keep up with the Tesla schedule, and it's tough. But it's coupled. I mean, you need good ideas, and if you have good ideas, you can find some money. I think lab directors are holding money for really good ideas. So I would really encourage people to get involved in R&D. If you come up with a really good idea, you'd be surprised that someone will find some money.
No, look, I'm quite convinced that we will find some money. I mean, the way I see this happening is that we've gone through the first round of the mating dance. I've talked to P.K. Williams. He said, no, I have no money. I talked to lab directors. No, we have no money. So you have to go through that. You're refused by everybody. Then I hope that the steering committee will be persuaded to make a very positive recommendation that this is crucial for this project, to get some detector R&D started, to get the community involved in a meaningful way. And that recommendation then cannot be ignored. And that's why I hope that the steering committee will have the lab directors on it. Once they make that recommendation, then they're kind of bound to follow through. So I'm optimistic that, yes, there will be money, but it'll be, you'll have to work on it.
Hi. I'd just like to nuance Charlie's statement about the World Book. I think quite a lot are motivated to have some sort of upgrade of the World Book, but not every region as yet is buying in. So if you have friends in Asia who you can persuade that it's a good idea, please do so.
Okay. So there are still two things to come.
Well, can I make one closing comment, and that is that I would like to thank Mark Aurelia. I mean, we have worked with him, with Paul, to organize this meeting, and we had very little to do. He did most of it. He did a wonderful job, so I'd like to thank him for that.
That was the first thing I would like to say also. Really good job. And the second thing I would like to, that's my privilege of chairman, that's to invite all of you at the next meeting in April, mid-April, in Saint-Malo, a beautiful city, small city in the French Brittany, very near, relatively near, 30 miles from Mont-Saint-Michel, which is a small style, as you can see, city, only pedestrian at that level, and we will be hosted here, that is to say, very near of the heart of the city. All of you are invited. The web page will be linked to the Equadesi web page just February 1st. Please do.
I would just like to make a quick advertisement for something we've failed to mention at this conference. More information will be on a link from our webpage. That is, Kwan-jae Kim has organized an excellent academic lecture series on the physics of linear colliders, the accelerator physics of linear colliders, with guest lectures. We are looking for ways to video that. It's a graduate course at the University of Chicago on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So look on our webpage for more information. At this point, I declare the conference closed. Thanks very much.